Okay, in this chapter, let's talk about a new shot. Here, we're going to talk about how to set up the animation for this backslide and the gunplay shooting shot. In the highlighting this shot, I will talk about how to set up the gun constraint with the hands and with the full body. So when we animate the gun, and the whole body will have the secondary animation automatically. For the mocap data I used for this clip is just a backslide motion clip from Mixamo as well. And what I did is I stretched the whole part from the character touches the ground until the frame he leaves the ground. So what I did is just I stretched this whole portion, and this is the final animation file that I used. Here you can see that the character is sort of backsliding forward with the camera and doing a little spray shooting action. Let me just go through this final animation file first, and we're gonna walk through step by step how to set up the whole thing to get to this part. The first thing I did is I constrained the hands and arms into IK and put the IK controllers and put them onto the gun so they can firmly hold the gun. They can firmly hold the gun no matter how the gun is moving. And for the gun aiming, the gun is actually being parent constrained to the chest controller. So when we rotate the chest or the torso, the gun will change the direction, because if you think in real life, when we shoot, we would hold the gun firmly and put it against our chest. And when we try to change the direction of the gun, we don't just change by our wrist or the hand, we actually will turn our full upper body and torso. So here's just trying to simulate how we actually hold the gun in real life. And the third thing is I did an aim constraint of the shoulder to the gun. So when we put the gun back, as there's a little recoil when we shoot, the shoulder will have a secondary rotation as it has been pushed by the gun firing recoil. So here is just another aim constraint to aim the shoulder controller to the gun controller. So when we're doing this whole clip, we only have to deal with the least controllers. First is the chest that controls the gun orientation, and the second one is the gun itself has the little secondary recoil, and the rest of the body will just follow those two controllers and have their own secondary animation. You can see here is when we pull the gun back, the shoulder controller will rotate the other way, so we get a better feeling of how the gun is pushing against a body. And basically the chest is the main controller in this whole situation, and whatever up, we only have to deal with the gun controller. So two controllers we're animating to get this whole animation. Okay, let's just start from scratch to show you how to set up this whole rigging system. This is the new Maya file that I have already imported this short motion clip file of this backslide, which you can find on Mixamo, and do the same step as the previous course, transfer through the motion library to the controller itself. So the first thing we need to do is we need to do a retime to the whole motion clip. We need to stretch out the part that the character is backsliding, so we have enough room for us to play with to insert the animation. Actually, in this case, I didn't bake the controller's animation, so all the animation exists on the joints itself. It's the same thing. I would like to tweak the animation right now, the timing of the animation on the joint, and then I'm gonna bake it. Okay, let's do the same thing to shift the whole animation to start from a frame 1001. So potentially we need to extend the frame later. Okay, before we bake the animation to the controller, let's retime the joints. And again, we select the whole we select the whole hierarchy from the joint by using the select function. So here we're going to use a retime tool in graph editor to do this retime business. First thing, let's find which frame the character makes contact with the ground. So it's around 10:13. So we're just gonna open the retime tool and we double click where we want the retime to start, and then we go to the last frame right before the character gets back up. So this is the range that we want to extend. Right now we just need to click this little button and we stretch. Here you can see whatever the keyframes within this bracket has been extended, and from the viewport we can see this part of the animation has been slowed down, and maybe we need a bit more, give it about 100 frames so we can have enough time to do our gun animation. Okay, I'm happy with this retime right now, and the next step is we want to keep the characters backsliding forward. So we're just gonna go to the hips controller and go to the Z channel, make this whole curve going the same direction, so to keep the speed consistent. Okay, now let's bake out the controllers. Let's bake out the keys from the joints to the controllers. And then we're gonna use another animation layer to add this whole arms and add this whole gun holding animation. Probably we need to tweak the head rotation as well, and maybe lift up the spine a little bit. So same business as we did in the first close-up shot animation layer. Okay, now I baked out the keys, same process as the previous course, so I just skipped that part so you don't have to see that again. So right now all the animation has been baked to their controllers, and I'm using those main controllers, the hip, the body, the arms, and the legs. Okay, now let's select all the key controllers for now, and so I kind of want to delete the keys in between. Well, because we retimed all the keys, so I want to delete everything but the hip. So we have a cleaner timeline. So let's add all the controllers to a new animation layer and set the layer name to gun pose. And let's key at the first frame 1000. Let's key translation and rotation. Okay, I think the pose right before it hits is alright. So let's just key another frame, translation and rotation to 1016, which is the first frame that he hits the ground. And let's tweak the pose a little bit, just so he doesn't lie flat on the ground. And rotate the spine a little bit, the neck, just to get a nicer pose. And here we need to switch the arms from FK to IK, because we need to keep the hand holding the gun after, and FK is not really easy to do this kind of animation. And here in the final one, I actually did a constraint switch, so he can actually grab the gun from the back and move it to the hand. So essentially just switch the constraint from the constraint to the back to constraint to the hand. So let's just switch the IK for now, and we need to keep that frame. So we only want arms to switch to IK once the character hits the ground. So we need to use that toggle to make sure that before it hits the ground, it's still in FK. And after we switch to IK, we need to move the IK controllers that we never touched to a proper position so the arm doesn't get stretched. and also the vector pull as well. Just to give it a nice pose. Now I'm just trying to imagine where the gun's supposed to be, and we're gonna add the gun model later. Okay, roughly there. And then let's import the gun. And the gun is just very simply rigged to 2 joints. The reason why I'm doing this because later on it's easier for Unreal Engine import. And the rigging system is very simple. It's just we have a root joint at 0, 0, 0, and we have another joint at where I think the pivot of the gun should be. Right now I put the pivot to the back handle, where basically where the trigger is, as the pivot of the gun. So and then we just gonna use a skin cluster to do a skin control, a skin deformation from the gun geo to the 2 joints. So right now we can easily import this whole system into Unreal if we need to do so, because Unreal read everything, every characters. They only read skin and blend shape deformation. So if we have a constraint, it won't be really, it won't be read by Unreal. So we need to, if anything we want to transfer, we need to do a skin. Okay, let's import this rigging system. Okay, now we have the gun imported successfully, and we want to keep the root at the origin, and we're just gonna move the actually here I'm gonna use 2 locators to do a secondary rigging to this gun local joint, because we may need to constrain the gun to the chest, but we also want to have the ability to animate the gun later. So we're just gonna do a 2 sort of a global offset using 2 locators. And after that, we just need to constrain this actual gun joint to our locator and bake out the animation. So simply, we're just gonna create 2 locators. One's called gun top, and the second one, let's call it gun local. Just put one underneath the top, so we have secondary. We have the ability to do the secondary adjustment. So we just need to do a parent constraint of the gun joint to our gun locator. Right now, if I move the locator, the whole gun will move as well. And now let's shift the 2 locator group. I mean the locator group with 2 locators to where the gun is supposed to be. I think because he's looking sort of a little to the left, so we may need to put the gun. I want to put the is that barrel? What's that called? I want to put the end of the gun against his shoulder. I kind of forgot. Did I scale down the gun a little bit? Because right now, if you see, if we try to put the left arm to hold the gun barrel, definitely it doesn't fit. So I may need to scale down the gun a little bit to about 0.8, 0.9. Let's try 0.9. Let's see how the size works. Okay, I think it might work. Okay, it works better. Okay, it works better. And then let's just tweak the position of the gun a little bit more. There's a little bit of intersection there. It should be fine. We can just hide it using some shadow and stuff. Okay, I think this is a good spot for the gun to be. And the next step, we need to constrain the whole gun to our character's chest. So when we move the chest, the gun moves as well, as we talked about before. So we need to select the chest controller and select the gun top locator, and we do a parent constraint. So see now that's the reason why we need to have two locators. So now the top is constrained to the chest, but we still have the local one for us to do a little bit secondary adjustment. And the next one, let's just put the put the hands into the right place, just to make it hold the gun properly. I'm not going to the fingers right now, just to save some time. Maybe open the elbow a little bit, and rotate the whole shoulder, just to get a better pose. The camera for this shot, the final, I put a bit little to the character left, so I care more about how the arm looks from the left arm. I don't really care about how the intersection or how the hand pose on the right arm, because we don't see it anyway. Okay, we're gonna make him to hold the barrel of the gun and just rotate the fingers a little bit. Yeah, we rotate them together. And the thumb, open up the thumb. Yep. And maybe I want to open this thumb root a little bit, just to it's squishing his thumb. Yeah, let's just keep it for now. Let's leave it for now. Lower the elbow a little bit. Okay, I think this is a good spot. Relatively a good spot. Okay, let's just save it. And the next step, we're just gonna do the same constraint to constrain our hand's IK controllers to our gun's controllers locator. So when we move the gun, the hands moves as well. So let's select the parent and select the child. Do a parent constraint, select the parent, select the gun, select the hand, and we're gonna parent constraint. So now if we move the gun, you see the hand moves as well. You can see right now when we move the character backwards or forwards in this case, our vector poles are not following our character, because we don't, in the comes with the rig, there's no parent space switcher for the vector pole. So here we need to use two locator, actually four locator, two for each, to switch the vector pole's parent space from world to maybe our character body. So when we move the character, the vector pole moves as well. So it's kind of boring step. We're gonna create two locators for each side, just to duplicate it and move it underneath. Now we're just gonna snap the top locator to where the vector pole is, and we're gonna do a parent constraint to constrain the vector pole to the secondary locator. So now we move the locator, the vector pole will move as well. And because we are constrained to the secondary locator, if we move the top locator, that vector pole will follow as well. The next step is the same thing as how we did to the gun. We just need to constrain the top layer for those vector pole locators to the chest as well. So we select the chest and select the top layer of the vector pole. Select the chest, select the top layer of the vector pole locators. Okay, after we do that, if we move the body, if we play the animation, our vector poles are moving with our character as well. This we use a locator group, as if it's the same thing we did to the gun. Okay, I think the last step is what we talk about is to do the aim constraint of the shoulder controller to aim the shoulder controller to our gun. So when we move the gun back our upper body will do a little twist to the opposite direction, as if the gun is pushing its back. So we select the gun controller and we select our shoulder controller, use the aim constraint. Here we need to set the aim vector as Z up and up vector as Y up. After we do the constraint, there will be a little bit offset, doesn't really matter, we can tweak it after. Okay, so that should just do it. Now let's see, if we move the gun, the shoulder controller will move accordingly, because it's always try to aim to where our gun locator is. And then we're just gonna rotate our neck and the head locator a little bit. So see, now if we move the gun back, our shoulder will twist in the opposite direction. It's just to give it a nice secondary animation. So when we actually animate the recoil when we're shooting the gun, the whole upper body will have some like vibration kind of movement. Let me tweak the shoulder a little bit more. I just don't like this pose. I'm not a big fan of this pose. Maybe lift up the shoulder. Yeah, always keep in mind how the final pose will look like through the camera. Even though we don't really have a camera yet, but we know roughly where the camera is gonna be. So if we only look at this back slide part, we have set up this rigging system. And now we just need to add some rotation to the chest controller on the second animation layer. We can have some very nice, interesting shooting animation. Just a little bit left to the right, maybe lift up a little bit, lower down. I'm just doing this purely random for now. So you can see it shoots right, shoots left, shoots up, and shoots down. Yeah. And maybe I can add a little bit more animation to the head. So whenever he changes direction, there's a little motivation. He can be like, he looks right or he looks left, and then he turns the gun direction. It's just to add a little motivation to the whole body direction change. And all the animation I'm doing now is to the second animation layer, so we don't change anything from the base layer. The base layer is just the mocap. It's just the retime the mocap clip. Let's just set up the camera now so we can see through the camera to do the final tweaks. Same thing, we're gonna use our favorite camera rigging system, 2-layer camera rig. And where is it? Here, yeah. Two camera layers and the camera shake itself. Let's just rotate the camera 180 degrees. So we move the camera top layer pivot to the center, roughly center of the character, and use the second layer to pull the camera back. In this way we can use the top layer to reorient the camera, sort of make the camera orbit around the camera a little bit, so I don't have to deal with translation and rotation at the same time. I'm just gonna give 2 simple keys, same thing, just to make sure the character is always in frame of our camera. Let's look through the camera. Okay, drag it in here. As you can see, probably the camera now is a bit, where is it? Okay, probably the camera is a bit too low right now. I need to lift the camera up overall a little bit. And you see, it's very easy. We can just tilt the camera down, pivoting this character. It's like a aim camera, but it's manual. Okay, reframed a bit. Maybe we see too much of the legs. Yes, see less of the legs. We want to see. Let's just change the aspect ratio to 2:3:5. Have a better judgment of the framing. what else? Okay, roughly here. Let's give a little camera roll on the camera node itself so it breaks the frame a little bit. Just give a little dynamics. I feel like I may need to change the lens to a longer lens to about 50 so it compressed the perspective a little bit to make it more of a close-up-ish. I kind of want to rotate the camera a little bit so the gun is firing at the camera. We get a better depth in the picture. So we see the gun's really close, and then we get a little bit of perspective inwards. Okay, now let's tweak the chest rotation a little bit through the camera view so it doesn't go crazy. Maybe we need to go back a little bit. And here I don't want the gun to be too high, and this is a kind of boring direction. Tweak it, delete this one, I don't need that, lower it just to make sure he's shooting at something. And the same thing, we do the head and neck adjustment through the camera view so it looks right. You need to roll the head back a little bit so he's aiming at it. Oh, this is the wrong. This is a bad angle. Pulled it down. Same thing. I'm just doing it really roughly here because we only have like 10 minutes left, and you can definitely spend more time on this just to make it work for the shot context. Here is just roughly the idea how we set up the system. And lastly, let's give the gun a little recoil animation. We just need to go to the gun secondary controller and do a couple keys to make it go forward and backward. I kind of want to adjust the gun angle a little bit. And I'm gonna set up a key translation rotation. So, and we're gonna give it translation, and you can actually do this step by using some procedural noise generator. Set up the amplitude and the frequency to give the gun a little random movements. But here I'm just gonna do it manually because I'm just being lazy and cutting corners now. Just a little forward and backward animation. I have a feeling maybe if we tilt the gun up and make it go down, this will sell more than the forward and backward Z translation. So this is very important to look through the camera to see how much movement you read from this perspective. Yep, it definitely looks better if we tilt the gun a little bit. I'm just thinking that maybe if we can use the camera noise, the camera shake script, to pipe some number in node editor, pipe some of the random number into this rotation. But anyway, that's for another day. Today I'm just gonna duplicate the key, old school, and that's pretty much it. It's probably actually faster than doing the whole expression. The last thing I think I want to do is I want to tweak the legs a little bit, so they don't stay static and they don't stay dead at the bottom of the frame. We just want to give a little bit animation somewhere there. If we see it, we see. If we don't see it, at least it's there. In the final one, I think I even did a little kickback animation on the leg, so there's more reason. It's more reasonable for him to go backwards if his leg is kicking back. But we don't have that time right now. Just gonna keep it simple and rough. So please, when you do this, spend more time on this. I only spent 30 minutes to roughly did this whole thing, and spend more time, you definitely get a better result. Last thing, last thing, promise, is the camera, our favorite camera shake. Do the same dome wireframe to check the rotation of the camera and do the camera shake script. This shot's supposed to be a pretty dynamic shot, and we even rotate the camera in Z so we can give a little more amplitude on the X and Y rotation and give it like 4 on the Z rotation, and frequency at 4 is supposed to, it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. So this is how I did this part in the final animation, and I even used the same animation, same camera move, and just punch in the lens so I get a tighter close-up of the character's face. So just to recap a little bit, the first thing is use the retime tool to retime the original motion capture clips, and secondly we did the we constrained the gun to the chest, and then we switched the arms into IK to constrain the hands to the gun. And lastly we did an aim constraint of the shoulder to aim the shoulder to the gun, so we get a secondary movement on the upper body. And lastly is just set up the camera and the whole camera shake business. So in the next course, I'm going to be talking about how to set up those POV shots, similar to what you see.
Purchase genuine tutorial. Enjoy the question answering from course tutor in the long term. Join the exclusive Facebook group and learn from each other. Also, you can sign up with Yihu.com. Search for the course ID. Obtain the full learning courseware, project files. Follow us on Facebook. Get closer to become a master in CG field.